Welcome in, everyone, to this episode of the Batfoot Podcast. My name is Damien, here with my co-hosts David and Matt, and today we're bringing you guys the division breakdown. Last time we did one was June 27th, so it's been quite a while, but excited to give you guys the update on what these standings look like now, since it's been about a month and a half since our last one. But before we get on to that, David, how are you doing this week?
I'm doing good. Had a bit of a plumbing issue the other day, which wasn't so fun. Plumbers are really expensive. Don't bother with those if you can. But overall, it's been a nice weekend, and with my Cubs playing really well right now, it's been especially nice to be a baseball fan, and we're getting excited coming to the home stretch, getting ready for playoff baseball. It's going to be exciting to kind of break down who's going to be getting close to the playoffs and who's falling out of contention and updating since the last time. So how you doing, Matt?
I'm doing pretty good. Been just hanging out watching the Braves play. It's been a little bit up and down lately, but the weekend was really fun. Against the Mets, I think they outscored the Mets by like 35 runs over the weekend, so I enjoyed watching that. and then yeah, everything's been pretty good. I think I'm actually going to the Braves game on Saturday. They're facing the Giants, so that should be fun. And I think it'll probably be Freed pitching, so which would be awesome. It's either Freed or Strider, I think, because I think they got Morton tomorrow, and then whoever Yanni Chirinos or somebody on Friday, and then it'll be Fried and Strider for the weekend. So looking forward to that. It'll be fun. But how are you doing, Damien?
I'm doing well. Since last time we recorded, my team has been undefeated, so that can never complain about an undefeated week here, and they've been on a roll and really pulled out this division gap. So that's been a lot of fun. And this weekend, really just hung out and didn't do much. Just sat at home, watched the games, watched some racing and some preseason football. Got to see Anthony Richardson play some as a Colts fan. Was excited for that one, but uh, overall, just nice, fun, enjoyable weekend, and ready to jump in here because my oh my, have these standings changed since the last time that we talked about it. So the last time that we did a breakdown, the Tampa Bay Rays led the AL East. The Baltimore Orioles were second, 4 games back. The Yankees were in third, 9.5 games back. The Blue Jays were fourth, 10 games back, and the Red Sox were fifth, 13 games back. Well, looking at this division now, the Baltimore Orioles now lead by 3 games over the Tampa Bay Rays. The Toronto Blue Jays are third, 8.5 games back. The Boston Red Sox are fourth, 11.5 games back, and the New York Yankees have fallen to last place in this division, 1 game above 500, 14 games back. So the AL East had quite a bit of change since the last one. What do you think about that, Matt?
Yeah, it's been a very interesting division. The Orioles are still playing extremely good baseball. I still a little concerned about their rotation, but I believe Jack Flaherty's been pretty good since he got there. So that's been nice for them to have him to have him play as well as he has and pitch as well as he has. And then I think that they have just kind of continued to play the same pace basically all year. And the Rays had been off to that insanely good start, and then they had some issues. They've had so many injuries and just players out. They've got like their starting rotation of players who are in the IL and out for the year is probably like a top 5 rotation in all of baseball. I mean, you've got you've got Drew Rasmussen, Jeffrey Springs, Shane Baz, like those 3 guys, and then you've got now Shane McClanahan, who is about to have Tommy John surgery. That's news that broke today. So you've got like 4 guys in that rotation who are legitimate, like top top 2 or 3 in the rotation type arms for pretty much any team that are out for the year. And then now you have your superstar shortstop and Wander Franco, who's been had a breakout season and has really been a star this year, is dealing with some off the field stuff that it really doesn't look good. He's been placed on the restricted list, so he's out now, and I'll be surprised if he's back anytime soon. So, you look at that, and I mean the Rays, they still got a great record. They're going to make the playoffs, but they're definitely tailing off, and it just all these issues that they've got now, it just that seems like it's going to be tough for them to regain anything. And I mean, the Orioles have an 8.5 game advantage on the team that I think is probably the most likely to gain games on them in the Blue Jays. So I think the Orioles really, this is their division to lose right now. The Blue Jays will be a good playoff team. They've got some issues, but they're a solid team. The Red Sox, they're okay. The Yankees have been a disaster lately, and I've been watching I've been watching them last night and tonight so far, and that team just there's nobody other than Aaron Judge who's not 100% still in that lineup that even somewhat worries you. I mean, like their second best hitter is probably Gleyber Torres, but Stanton's been bad. I mean, like that it's everyone's hurt. Rizzo's hurt. Like that whole team is it was poorly constructed to start with, and it's they've had bad luck with injuries and stuff too. So I'm surprised. They're very lucky to be above 500 right now, and that might not last very much longer. So
Yeah, I think the AL East is a story of kind of couple of the underrated franchises and the big franchises moving in opposite directions. You've got Baltimore moving up with the calling up of their superstars who are carrying the team right now, right? I mean, Gunnar Henderson's he's got like a 125 WRC plus. He's been playing so well. Adley Rutschman's been very solid, and I think that's going to kind of be where he settles in as kind of a top 5 catcher in baseball. Maybe not the best defensive catcher in baseball like he was last year, but just a really solid player leading this team. You've got Anthony Santander, Austin Hayes, Cedric Mullins. Those guys are all just putting together great plate appearances every single day. With regard to their pitching staff, right, that's a team that, is employing like Kyle Gibson, who is currently being a really good, number 2 starter. It's shocking that they've arisen this fast, but they had to. And I think that's the big thing, is that this is a team that has risen to the occasion despite the drama of the off field, with Angelos and the family, and them really only making one move at the trade deadline for Jack Flaherty, like you said. It's a team that is on the rise, and they've taken advantage of the Rays' mishaps, I think, and then also the Yankees' mishaps, the Red Sox mishaps, the Alek Manoah situation in Toronto. I mean, you're right. I think this is an Orioles division to lose, and the Blue Jays and the Rays are probably occupying 2 of your wild card slots going in, but there's still a lot of baseball to be played. So, for now, I think that's a good wrap on the AL East, but the Rays are such a volatile team with Glasnow and Eflin still pitching as ace level guys, and Aaron Savale coming over from the Guardians. I mean, that trade looks huge now with McClanahan out next year.
it's just
So it's a 2-horse race, but it's 2 tough horses and 2 tough outs in the playoffs.
it's incredible the depth the Rays built this year. Like the fact that they're still not just totally dead on the mound is insane. I mean, we've seen, the Braves have for the most of the year been the best team in baseball. We've seen that their pitching has just been not great lately because of the injuries to Fried and to Kyle Wright. Like, and in a team that was thought of as being like the best team in baseball is struggling with these pitching injuries. And then you've got a team like the Rays who just, it seems like they're still really good on the mound. Like, even with all the injuries, I mean, like I said, that 4 in their rotation that is on the IL would be like, I would take that rotation over anybody else's in baseball right now. I mean, it's just crazy to me that is their IL rotation, and they're still not bad in the big leagues. So, I mean, I hate it for them that they've had all these issues, because man, that team, that's one of those teams. It's going to be a what if team. What if this team had stuck together and stayed on the field all year? I think at the end of the day, but
Yeah, I mean, they've done a great job at, that's kind of what the Rays always do. They're always a team that has a ton of depth, but their pitching has been tested even more than, we've seen them build the depth before. It's been tested this year, and they've done a great job at it. And like you said, that IL rotation is a rotation that you would take in a playoff series in a World Series, so they've done a great job so far. McClanahan being out, and then obviously whatever the other situation that they're going to have to deal with Wander. But we'll see. But it's fun to see the Orioles leading this division. That's really, really fun.
It really is.
So let's go ahead and jump over to the American League Central now, where the last time we recorded, the Twins led it by only half a game over the Guardians. Tigers were third, 4.5 out. White Sox were 6 out, and then the Royals were 17 out. Now we look at it. Minnesota leads the division still, and they have a 4.5 game lead now over Cleveland. Detroit is still third, but now they're 8 games out. The White Sox have fallen to 14.5 games out, and then Kansas City is 23 games out. So David, the Twins are pulling a little bit of a lead here in the AL Central as we're in the middle of August.
They are, and it's on the strength of their starting pitching. Sonny Gray has been very, very strong. He's going to get a really big deal in free agency this year, I think. In terms of, it'll probably be shorter term. He's like 33, but Sonny Gray's coming out and he's got a 3.04 ERA, but a 2.79 FIP. So he's controlling the home run ball, basically, is what that's saying. And the stuff he can control, he's doing a very good job of it. He's walking a little bit more guys than you'd expect for a guy with that kind of nasty stuff, but it doesn't seem to matter, and it doesn't seem like anybody can square him up, right? He's keeping the ball in the ballpark better than just about anybody else in baseball right now, with like a 4.6% homer for fly ball rate, which just means guys aren't squaring him up. And he's got the nasty sweeper to pair with like a 95-mile-an-hour fastball. I mean, he's always had really good stuff, even when he was on the Reds. You combine him with Pablo Lopez, who came over in that Luis Arias trade, and that trade just keeps looking better and better for both teams, man. Lopez is really thriving. He's striking out so many guys this season. And Joe Ryan's been striking out a lot of guys, too. This is a rotation that I think it might be one of the tough out, like the sneaky tough outs in the playoffs. You'll have, Gray, Lopez, and probably Ryan, and it could be Kenta Maeda too, who got a 3.97 ERA, but he's got a lot of strikeouts as well. This pitching staff development's figured something out, and they look really, really dangerous. The big problem for the Minnesota all season has been that offense, and I don't know if they'll figure Carlos Correa out this season, but they've got him for 6 years, right? They'll have to make do with the production that they're getting from him. Byron Buxton has not been good this season, right? A 99 WRC plus. That's just not enough for a guy of that stature. And I think he's had some more injury issues. The two best hitters on Minnesota right now are Ryan Jeffers and Eduardo Julien. So, yeah, Julien might be making a run for AL Rookie of the Year, but you can't. I don't know how well you can rely on those two guys when it comes to playoff time, given their lack of experience there. So, Minnesota's questionable, but I think this division is kind of. I don't want to call it yet, but it looks like theirs to lose because the Guardians sold at the deadline.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick a fork in this division. I think the Twins are gonna run away with it. They've got to start with, they've got the easiest strength of schedule remaining in baseball, outside of the Cubs. I think the Cubs have the easiest, and the Twins are the second easiest at 478 winning percentage by their teams remaining, which is a big deal. You kind of expect that in the AL Central, but they've got a lot of games against those bottom tier teams left. You look at that, and then if you look at the Fangraphs playoff odds, they're at a 91% chance to win their division right now, which the only two teams with the higher odds to win their division are the Braves and Dodgers, who are probably the two best teams in baseball. So you've got you've got that, and I mean it's gonna be tough. I mean the Guardians just don't have any offense, and then everyone else is just in this division is just terrible. So I mean the White Sox are making a run at like 100 losses now, and the Tigers are a little better than they were last year, but they're really bad. The Royals, without notwithstanding what Bobby Witt Jr. has been doing lately, are really bad too. So I mean the Twins easy right now to win, in my opinion. And part of their way that they've kind of pulled away a little bit, I mean, they have been playing better baseball. They've been hovering around 500 all year. I think they're 4 games over now. And, David mentioned the offense. The offense had been really, really bad. But over the last 30 days, they've got like a 120 WRC plus as an offense. So there's been some improvement shown. Like you said, my man Edward Julian, the Auburn guy, is doing really, really well for them, and then they've also got some guys that have come back and gotten healthy, like Jorge Polanco is a guy that I know that they had counted on coming back. He's got a 109 WRC plus in 16 games. You know, it looks like Byron Buxton's coming around a little bit, a 122 WRC plus in his last 30 days. Um, you know, uh, I mean, Alex Kirilov's been playing a little bit better. Like they've started to play a little bit better, hit a little bit better. Max Kepler's actually been on fire for the last month too. He's got a 159 WRC plus for the last month. So, um, that's a group that's starting to play a little bit better. I still don't think they're going to win a round in the playoffs, but you never know. I mean, Sonny Gray, Joe Ryan, Pablo Lopez, like you've got some pitchers there that can give a team problems in that 3 versus 6 series because you're going to be playing the worst wild card, which is I think's probably going to be it's
The AL West wild card, probably.
I think it'll be the East. I
Or
think
the
that
Blue Jays.
yeah, I was gonna say it'll probably be the Blue
Maybe the Blue
Jays. I
Jays.
mean, so that could be an interesting series to see. But definitely, the Twins are gonna have an opportunity to break a insane streak this year because they are gonna make the playoffs. They're gonna have an opportunity to win a playoff game, which I think they've lost like 18 in a row or something. So that'll be very interesting to see if they can do that. But
Is it not a game?
they have not won
They
a
haven't won a
game.
playoff
won a
game.
They've been
game.
swept in
A
like their
game.
last 4 or 5 series they've played.
It's
Yeah.
since they knocked out the 2002
Yeah.
Oakland A's, right?
Right, they've lost every single game since then in the playoffs.
Yeah.
The
Not a
karma.
single
It's
one.
the karma.
Yep.
We're talking about the Twins there too, and you mentioned the struggles with Correa. Since August has started, he has a 130 WRC plus as well. Like he's
Heating up.
512 slugging. He's starting to find it a little bit. Even the last week, he batted 375 with a 1.313 OPS. So, I mean, if they're really starting to get the Carlos Correa that we know, they could be even more dangerous. But this division, I don't want to call it yet either because you never know. I mean, the Guardians they're one of the teams kind of like the Rays. They'll just find pitching performances. I mean, what Tanner Bybee and Gavin Williams have done this past couple weeks too have been really, really good. And they don't have Bieber right now, and maybe if they're able to get him back, they can make a run. I mean, it's only 4.5 games. It's not, crazy. And if Cleveland plays Minnesota and they sweep them one time, it's game and a half. I mean, it's really not out of the question there. But Minnesota's definitely trending upwards at the moment.
I would think this year's Guardians team may be one of the most impacted by the change in the schedule where they don't play as many teams from their own division. That's a team that could really feast on the weaker AL Central the last couple of years. This year they can't do that. The Twins are a little bit better, more well-rounded. It's allowing them to, I think, win a few more games that the Guardians would have otherwise been able to pick up on the teams in its own division.
Yeah. I also think they might be one of the teams affected the most by the shift ban.
That too. Yeah.
They were
a
really
very defensive team.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and jump over to the American League West now, where last time we talked, the Texas Rangers led the division by 5 games over the Angels, 6 games over the Astros, 9.5 games over the Mariners, and 28 games over the Athletics. Well, let's look now, and the Texas Rangers still lead the division by 3.5 games over Houston, 7.5 games over Seattle. The Angels have fallen to 12.5 games out instead of 5 games, and Oakland is now 38 games back. So, hey, since June 27th, Oakland has only lost 10 games in this division, guys.
Jeez. Man, I tell you,
It's a feat in itself, all right?
They got this. They got this.
They're projected for 111 losses right now, which would mean they'd have to win 18 more games. And I don't see that happening. I mean,
look at it this way: they only need to win 7 games to not be the worst team of all time. I think they can get there.
probably.
We are on August 15th of recording this, and they have a negative 286 run differential.
It's insane.
Okay.
I mean,
like that is astronomically bad.
That is all the talk we're having on the Oakland A's.
Yeah.
Well, I did want to say, I don't know if you saw I don't know if there's president or something like that, basically said that, like, hey, when we go to Vegas, like, we will spend on free agents because they invested in us, so we will invest in the team.
They spent
So
on a free.
there's
They
that.
spent, well, I mean, spending on free agents can mean anything. I mean, they spent on a free agent this year. I mean, they
Yeah,
signed Jace Peterson. Like
They
yeah.
Casey
did have some. They
Aguilar,
did sign
Fujinami,
Trevor
Trevor
May,
May. Yeah.
Ledmus Diaz. But anyways, I thought it was funny what they said that
Oh
there.
yeah.
That is hilarious.
But looking up, Texas, I mean, leading this
Yep.
division still staying strong. Houston's made their little bit of a push here. I mean, it's only, 2.5 games, but they're only 3.5 games back now, and they're a sneaky team. Now they got Verlander back. Framber just had his no-hitter a couple weeks ago, even though he got lit up the next start after. But Houston's one of those dangerous teams that could always make that little bit of a run here. But overall, what do you guys think of it?
Yeah, I think. I mean, I really like this Rangers team right now. I mean, they've been playing extremely well since the end of the since the second half began. They've got Seager's healthy right now. Simeon's playing really well still. Like their their whole like their whole lineup is just they're really deep. And then the pitching staff, they added Max Scherzer, who I had been saying he was cooked because he looked awful in New York this year, but he's pitched pretty well for them so far. He's had a couple starts where he didn't look great, and then this last start he pitched 7 innings of shutout ball with 11 strikeouts. So that's kind of, we started to see the vintage Max Scherzer. I think he's not the same guy as he has been, but he will show flashes. He'll have starts where he's just the total dominant guy that he has been. I don't know if the consistency is going to be quite what it always has been, but he's going to help them. Jordan Montgomery's was a good pickup. This team's I really think this team's going to hold on here in this division. The Astros are playing pretty well. They're a lot healthier than they have been all year. Um, I think Framber Valdez, he's pitched a ton of innings over the last couple of years. He might be just a little bit worn down. But he's slowed down just a little bit. Justin Verlander being back, it helps them. Their rotation depth was a problem, and I don't think Justin Verlander's a number one anymore, but he's still a pretty good starter. You trust him with a playoff start. You look at in the offense. I mean, Altuve's finally playing and healthy, and you've got Bregman and Tucker and just the whole crew on offense. So I think that the Astros are doing well. The rest of this division, the Mariners have been really hot since the second half began. That's been a lot of fun to see. They actually sold at the deadline a little bit. They sold Paul Sewald. Of course, they did bring back a couple of major league pieces for him, so it was kind of a big league to big league trade. But still, they gave away their closer and they've just kept winning. And but can't be said for the Angels. They went for it. The injuries just kept piling up. I mean, right after the trade deadline, Taylor Ward got knocked out for the season. Like, Otani's not healthy. He's been, a little bit inconsistent on the mound, and just he's been, dealing with fatigue, and I think he's had like some broken fingernail issue that's kind of affected him for a couple months too. That's one thing that is a concern with Otani, is just he does so much and he's so good that stress on the player. They've done a great job managing that with the Angels his entire career, but it's still, that's just so much on a player, and at some point, you have to give him time off, and I think that they're giving him a start off, and but I mean, the Angels have just kind of collapsed after all the injuries and everything. So, but I think the Rangers are going to hold on here. What do you think, David?
So this is interesting because I think this is going to be the closest race coming down to the wire in the American League and maybe in all of baseball. It could be close with what the NL Central is kind of looking like. The thing about the Rangers is that Josh Jung is hurt, and he's been very, very good. He's been rookie of the year contender for sure. Started the All-Star game, won 125 WRC plus. He's been very good. The other thing about the Rangers is that getting Corey Seager back, Corey Seager has a 185 WRC plus. Now, for the uneducated, WRC plus is just related to league average. 100 is league average. 185 means you're going to be 85% better than the average player. That, if Corey Seager were qualified, would be number one in baseball over Shohei Ohtani by 4 points, 4%. That's absurd that Corey Seager's throwing that together. And that is, I think, buoying the Rangers, who are dealing with some of those injuries. And then you've got Nathan Eovaldi's also on the IL right now. So this is a Rangers team that's going to need superstar performance from Corey Seager, and they are getting it. And they're getting superstar performance from Adolis Garcia, Marcus Semien as well. I think this is not a closed division. The Astros are really good. Kyle Tucker has been unheralded and excellent, as he's kind of been his whole career. Jose Altuve's back with a 170 WRC+. So he's also, getting back to that superstar level after missing a bunch of the start of the season with the hand injury that he suffered in the World Baseball Classic. I don't think the Mariners are necessarily out of this thing yet either, because that's a team that we know can go on these late runs in the season and get kind of team of destiny feels, and that's a team that the offense has not come to the level that we kind of expected them to be over the year. Julio Rodriguez is yet to hit to like a WRC plus at 120. You're looking at Cal Raleigh and some of those other guys, Eugenio Suarez, Teoscar Hernandez. Those are all really streaky guys that could just put it all together for 2 months. I'm not calling this one at all. I think the Rangers are your favorite if you're betting, but I'm not betting on anything here. I think even the Mariners could make a sneaky little run at this, even though they're a little bit far back right now.
Yeah, so I want to put a little bit more perspective on the season that Corey Seager's having, and I'm glad you mentioned it. Corey Seager in 2022 in 151 games for the Rangers, hit 33 homers, had a 117 WRC plus and a 40 or 4.5 WAR, right? This season in 76 games, he has 20 homers already, batting 346, a 185 WRC plus, has the exact same WAR at 4.5 in half the games. If Corey Seager was qualified with his 76 games, you mentioned his WRC plus would be first. With 76 games, he would be tied for 10th on the WAR leaderboard with his teammate Adolis Garcia, who currently has 30 homers, 91 RBIs, and a 134 WRC plus. Everybody else in the top 20, I guess Bellinger's 19th with 87 games at a 3.9. If he were to have 100 games with all these other ones having 112 to 120, he'd be right there in WAR with Ronald Acuna Jr. and Freddie Freeman, Shohei Ohtani for batters at above 6. Like, he's tied for 10th right now in 76 games. It is insane the season that he's having. Like, he's already 0.9 WAR off his career season, and that was in 145 games in 2017 for the Dodgers that year. Like, the season he's having is just incredible, and because he's missed so much time, which has been a problem of Seager's before, it's not being talked about enough because the Rangers have been so good with Adolis Garcia and the pitching and Nathan Eovaldi, and they've had a lot of other storylines. But man, if you get him into the playoffs and he's healthy, like, that instantly changes what that Rangers team really looks like.
If I had to preliminarily pick like a guy who you would think is like the highest percent to win World Series MVP right now, I'm picking Corey Seager.
Yeah.
He's the kind of guy who's so consistent that that's the type of performance that will carry through the playoffs, just no matter who he's facing. He walks a ton, he doesn't strike out, hits for a ton of power, especially right now, and he's playing shortstop, and for one of the teams that we think is probably, one of the playoff favorites once you get to the playoffs right here, World Series favorite type of team in the Texas Rangers.
Hey, just saying, we've seen what he's been able to do in a playoff series in that ballpark. Exactly. Just saying.
Because the Dodgers won the yeah.
Happened to see that one.
Was that in at the Texas Rangers ballpark or at Disneyland?
Got him.
So we would like to make a formal announcement that Matt has been kicked off the Batflip podcast. And we will now be skipping the NL East in the division breakdown and moving straight to the NL Central.
I'm almost this excited to talk about the New York Mets as my Braves.
There you go. That's the one.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and jump over to the NL East now, where let me pull this up real quick. Last time we talked, the Braves led the division, 6.5 games over the Marlins, 10.5 over the Phillies, 16 games over the Mets, and 21 games over the Nationals. Looking today, Braves, best team in baseball right now, leading by 11.5 games over the Phillies, The Marlins are third now with back 14 games. The Mets are 22 and a half games back, and then the Washington Nationals are 23 and a half games back. Matt, go ahead and make fun of Steve Cohen.
Let's talk about how the Washington Nationals are one game behind the Mets.
Yeah.
I mean, the Mets
Mhm.
ran out a lineup on Saturday that I think a AAA team could have beat. I mean, it really like that. It really is honestly just insane. I mean, part of it, and they really didn't trade that many players out of their lineup. It's kind of the crazy thing. Like like Pham and Canha get traded were that those were a couple pieces, but like and Starling Marte's out. But I mean, they ran out a lineup that was like, I mean, I think if I went to a AAA game, I would have expected to see that lineup. And of course, they got beat 21-3 in that game. Gave up a home run to Nicky Lopez and 4 hits in his first start as a Brave. And then, I mean, it's just, I mean, the Mets are bad. But anyways, this division, the Braves are going to win the division. I mean, it's clear cut right now. They're by far the best team here. Over the last 30 days, they have a 138 WRC plus, and it's probably been their worst stretch of the season because the pitching's been bad. They're starting to get healthy on the mound. Max Fried's back. They're going to get Kyle Wright back potentially in September. And it did suck to see today Ozzy Albies went on the IL with I think it's kind of a minor hamstring strain, so he'll probably be back sometime in September. But you don't like to see that. But that team's really good. The Phillies are probably the biggest story here right now, as they've played or had a really really good month, put themselves in position to be in the wild card, maybe even that number one wild card. As they've been extremely good. They've honestly they're winning so many tight games right now. It's kind of like what the Marlins were doing earlier this year. Um, it's it's been really entertaining to see them, and I mean it seems like they're finding ways to win instead of finding ways to lose every night, like just in close games. So the Marlins were like that early in the year. They went through a really bad stretch for a few weeks, but they've kind of rebounded a little bit. They're back to 6 games over 500. They're still in the race. In fact, Fangraphs gives them a greater than 50-50 chance to make the playoffs again. So that would be incredible for the Marlins if they can pull off making the playoffs this year. They did add at the deadline. Some of their pieces have done pretty well. Jake Burger's had a really good couple weeks since he came over from the White Sox, so that's been fun to see. But yeah, I mean this division. I mean it's the Braves' division to lose. They're obviously going to win this one. It's really not going to be close. It's kind of get ready for the playoffs for them. The Phillies, they still got to keep winning, but they seem to be in the best position to be in the wild card. So and then we'll see what happens with the Marlins. Phillies and the Marlins could be really interesting to watch down the stretch here.
Yeah, for a division that doesn't have a whole lot going on at the top, right? I mean, I think it's pretty easy to stick the fork in the Braves. I think this one's over. The Braves are going to win the NL East. This one's pretty much a foregone conclusion. And you're looking at the Phillies and the Marlins are fighting for the wild card. And Miami's MVPs have been Luis Arias and Jorge Soler, who Arias is still hitting 366, which isn't quite a 400 chase, but there's nobody in his stratosphere right now in terms of batting average. I think Cody Bellinger's like 340 or something. Nobody's close right now to Luis Arias in terms of batting average, and he's been able to parlay that into a 142 WRC plus with a 6% strikeout rate, which is obscene. And Jorge Soler's hit 30 bombs, which if Matt Olson wasn't in the division hitting 42 already, and we're in the middle of August, 43 in the middle of August, we'd be talking about Jorge Soler as maybe like the most valuable like power hitter of this league. But he's maybe the best non-Brave in terms of power to this point this season. I like this Marlins team. I like the addition of Jake Burger. I really think he will be really good. The one guy that they put in who's gone nuclear early on is Josh Bell, who has hit 5 home runs since coming over in 12 games. That's surprising because Josh Bell's kind of MO is that he gets hot for 2 weeks, goes cold for a month, gets hot for 2 weeks. The Marlins just need to hope that he can have that hot stretch right as those games really start to matter going down into September. The other guy I want to highlight in this division is C.J. Abrams. Just for the Washington Nationals, he has started hitting leadoff a couple of months ago and has been absolutely excellent for the Nationals. He's gotten his season slash up to 255, 306, 413. We talked about him struggling a lot. He's up to being almost a league average hitter now this season with a really hot last 2 months. He's got to 11 home runs. He's about to hit 30 steals, and he's playing, solid, not spectacular shortstop defense as a 22-year-old. So, this is one of the primary returns for Juan Soto. Nationals fans have to be excited that C.J. Abrams is starting to kind of step into a starting shortstop role, figure out major league pitching, and kind of having that breakout couple of months that I think it's always been expected of him to be this kind of leadoff, stolen base guy with a little bit of pop in the bat. He looks the part right now, and at 22, I think the sky's the limit for a guy who used to be a top 10 prospect.
Yeah, it's C.J. Abrams was one of those top prospects that you expected to break out. You knew it was going to take some time because he was still really young, and the approach that he had was going to have to develop over time. But he's really started to show that. The one guy that I wanted to mention is we haven't talked about him much this year. We talked about him a lot last year, but it's who's really starting to figure it out is Sandy Alcantara.
Yeah.
Since July started, he has a 2.75 ERA, and then if you go since the All-Star break, a 2.45 ERA. And a 3.22 FIP. Like, he's starting to figure it out. He just had a 9-inning, 10 strikeout, 1-run game. I believe it was, who was that against? I think it was against the Yankees. Yeah, the Yankees. Of all teams, we're just talking about how bad they look. But, he's starting to really look good. Like, a couple starts before that against the Phillies, 8 innings, no runs, 5 strikeouts at that point. The start before that against the Rays, a 9 innings, 1 run, 7 strikeouts. Like, he's starting to turn into the Cy Young winner that we saw last year. And if the Marlins really want a chance to make this run into the playoffs and in maybe into the playoffs, they need a guy like Sandy to be back to his form. And they're lucky that they're able to be in this spot where they're at right now with the season that Sandy has had. Because he's supposed to be the guy that's really pushing them over the ledge there. So when they're in position battling for a wild card, now Sandy's starting to find it. Like, that could be a really big thing for the Marlins there. But like you guys said, the Braves, it's really going to be about getting ready for the postseason and the number 1 seed matchup. The race to that, which it's got down to only 4 games now between the Braves and the Dodgers. So that's going to be one of those to watch. Which I actually think you might want to be the number 2 seed team at the moment.
That's typically,
yeah, the number 2 seed team right now in the AL, you'd have to be facing either the Phillies or the Giants in that next series. So that is just one thing, to watch. But the Braves are going to win this division easily. So let's go ahead and jump over to the NL Central, where the Milwaukee Brewers, last time we talked, the Reds led the division by half a game over the Brewers. The Cubs were 3.5 games back. The Pirates were 5 games back, and the Cardinals were 8 back. We look now, Milwaukee has got that lead up to 3.5 games over the Cubs. The Reds are also 3.5 back. The Pirates are 12 back, and then the Cardinals are also 12 back. So a lot of ties there in that division, but David, we know you're a Cubs fan here. Milwaukee's got a 3.5 game lead. What are you thinking about the NL Central?
So what that doesn't tell you is that the Cubs fell to 8 games back and brought it back to 3.5 back since we've last talked. So that's been absurd. It's been a bit of a roller coaster. As July kind of started, the team really started to slump. It was really brutal, and the only guy hitting was Cody Bellinger. Stroman pitched really poorly there for a little bit. Turns out he was pitching injured. He's now on the IL and had a setback. So the Cubs aren't getting Marcus Stroman back anytime soon, but they've made a lot of really big strides. They removed Trey Mancini from the team, traded for Jeimer Candelario. They've traded away Nelson Velasquez, who, I didn't mention it on the Royals, but he's hit 2 home runs too since getting over there. I'm a I'm a big advocate of what the Cubs are doing, and then Matt mentioned it earlier. The Cubs have a really easy strength of schedule going down until they've got the Braves and the Brewers last two games of the season, or not last two series of the season. So literally, the last series of the season is against what is probably the division fight.
That Braves series too might be the Braves resting guys to a certain
Yep.
level.
Yeah, and the Brewers series is, I think, it literally might, be for the division. This Brewers team is good. They've gotten resurgence from Christian Yelich. They just made a trade at first base for somebody whom I'm suddenly spacing on.
Santana.
Yes, Carlos Santana, who hit a walk-off homer this week, didn't he?
Mark Canha as well.
Yep.
Yeah, they got Mark Canha too. So they're both bolstering an offense that's been pretty poor outside of Christian Yelich and William Contreras. But this is a team that, with Corbin Burns, Brandon Woodruff will be coming back. Freddie Peralta's been very, very strong this season.
Woodruff did just come back, by the way.
Yeah, Woodruff's back. So I expect the Brewers and the Cubs to be really fighting this one out. Cubs are going to have to utilize their, the head-to-head matchups and their weaker schedule to, go out there and take this division. It'll be a dogfight to the end. I love to say I'm confident that the Cubs will get it. I'm not. But one of these teams will probably get in that wild card spot as well. That we'll talk about the NL West. The NL West has fallen off pretty drastically in terms of like the Diamondbacks. So the Dodgers have not. Damien's shaking his head. The Dodgers have not fallen off. Everybody else around the Dodgers has collapsed horribly. I'm really liking what I'm seeing out of the Cubs and the Brewers. The Reds, not so much. That pitching is just not going to hold up, I don't think, and they didn't make any moves at the deadline. I think that's going to kind of nail the coffin for the Reds. But what a story they've been able to put together. Matt McLain is making a case for NL Rookie of the Year against Corbin Carroll. He's going to fall short, but he has, I believe, a 130 WRC plus last I checked. It might be coming down now that he's finally starting to get figured out by the league. But Matt McLain, Ellie De La Cruz, they've been very electric. Have the Reds, and they're not gonna be able to make it happen.
128 for Matt McLain right now.
Still 130 plus.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's very good.
Yeah, I agree. You look at this team, and I'm glad that you talked about Matt McLain because it seems like all the attention goes to Ellie De La Cruz, which he's really good, but I mean he does have a below 100 WRC plus. Like, it needs to. He's still a work in progress at the big league level at the plate. He's got a 35% strikeout rate. It's going to take him a little bit of time. Matt McLain's been awesome for them. Spencer Steer's another guy who's been great for them. But looking at this division as a whole, I think that the Brewers are definitely the best team here right now. I think that bringing Woodruff back and having that 1-2 at the top of that rotation is awesome. Their bullpen's really good. They've helped the offense, and honestly, I think some of their pieces that they have on offense have underperformed a little bit too. Like Willy Adames, I don't think he's as bad as he's played so far. I think that they're a really really solid club. The Cubs have been playing awesome. I'm still a little bit concerned about just the depth of that team. I know Cody Bellinger has been great this year. You look at Dansby Swanson's been really good for them. Some of that depth, and Candelario has been awesome since the trade deadline too when they got him. But some of that depth just concerns me a little bit. Nico Horner's good. Happ is fine. Like it's just I don't know. The pitching depth isn't great. Like they're running Taillon out there a lot. I think that there's some regression there from Steele and Stroman from what they were doing earlier. They're still good, but they're not quite like 2 ERA type guys. They're more of like low to mid 3s ERA type guys. But I think going
Stroman's
forward,
found it. Steele hasn't.
Yeah,
I think Steele's going to be that guy, right? I think Stroman was pitching above his weight. Yeah. He's come back to it. I think, and that was with a really brutal stretch that is resulting in an injury. I don't think that it was fully indicative of Stroman, but I think Steele's going to end up in our Cy Young conversation at the end of the year. He's been absolutely incredible.
He's been awesome.
performance like that around a team like the Cubs who desperately needed an ace level pitcher, that is celebration worthy. I think the Cubs the fluff of the roster that didn't work is gone, and I think the offense is the best offense in the NL Central. With the Reds, it's close with the Reds. The big problem is going to be, can the Cubs get that pitching performance out of the Kyle Hendricks spot, the Stroman spot, which is currently Javier Assad, who pitched a really good game on Friday. He'll be going again tomorrow, and the Jameson Taillon spot. If they can get good performance from those guys, that's it. I like the Cubs. If they can't, I'm very nervous.
I was gonna say St. Louis probably has the best offense in the division, but their pitching staff is so bad that it doesn't matter. But
I'm acting like they don't exist because they are
yeah,
not.
yeah,
They are out of the out of the race.
yeah,
We're celebrating.
yeah.
It's excellent.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, I don't totally disagree. Like I say, I don't think I'm quite as high on some of the
No,
pieces
yeah.
that have come up, but I mean, the Cubs are good, and they're a lot better than I expected them to be this year, and I think they're probably more likely than not to be playing in October, past October 2nd, which is the day the regular season ends. But yeah, I mean, you know, the Reds have been awesome just in the way that I think they're real similar to what the Orioles were last year. They're a team that's punching above its weight pretty heavily, but it's giving them a lot of confidence and momentum going forward. They
Mm-hmm.
probably made a wise decision not buying at the deadline, especially with the fact that a lot of the pieces that did get moved were rental players, which I don't think that it would have been
That wouldn't
wise for
help
them
them.
it probably wouldn't help them if someone who was a long term, like, going to be there 3 or 4 years got moved, maybe, but that pitching staff has just kind of collapsed. And honestly, like, coming into the season, we thought the pitching staff might be the thing that carries them a little bit because of Hunter Green and Nick Lodolo and some of their prospects that are close to the big leagues. And we saw some flashes from other guys like Graham Ashcraft in the past, but it just didn't really happen, and injuries have played a big role there. And maybe if they get Hunter Green and Nick Lodolo back, you look at a team that has a couple of good pitchers top of the rotation. The bullpen's been okay to decent, especially with Alexis Diaz has been really good, and then you've got a lineup that's scoring a lot of runs and it's been electric. So I don't think they're going to end up winning the division this year, but I mean, a good goal for them is finish out this season well and finish above 500, kind of like what the Orioles did last year, and then next year
Yeah.
take that momentum and carry it over and make a real run at it. And honestly, I don't think that the Reds are going to be quite as opposed to spending a little bit of money as people think they will, because I mean, in the past we have seen them sign some free agents that weren't just like bargain bin free agents. I mean, they signed Mike Moustakas, they signed Nick Castellanos, they signed Sonny Gray. They've signed
Yep.
a bunch of guys. It just
Joey Votto had a big
Joey
extension
Votto was on a
few years
huge
ago.
contract. Like,
Yep.
they've signed guys, so it's not like they've never signed anybody ever. Like something like the A's, where there's no way they're going to sign anybody, or the Rays, or whatever. Like the Reds, they'll try to sign somebody. They're probably not going to be in for like an Ohtani type, but
Nah.
they'll try to.
They could also make a trade.
They could.
Yeah,
make
I
a
was just
trade.
gonna say
They need
they're
to
gonna
make a
be
trade.
they're gonna be one of the sneaky ones with all that infield depth
Yep.
they have
They have
to make a
They
trade.
have so many guys that are going to be blocked at the upper levels of the minors that they need to make a
Yeah.
trade pretty soon. So, but yeah, and you're looking at the other teams. I mean, the Cardinals and Pirates have been disappointing this year, and obviously we know about the Cardinals. The Pirates haven't had a lot going for them lately, so I don't think they've been. I think they've really.
They've given up.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's kind of a disaster for them right now because a lot of their pieces for the future aren't performing very well or have gotten hurt. That's kind of the big thing. Like the guys who are performing well for them right now are like Andrew McCutchen, who's not really a part of the future. I mean, I guess Brian Reynolds is still playing pretty well, but
Yeah.
like they're pitching. Mitch Keller's taking a huge step back in the second half. Like a lot of those pieces that you're thinking in the future, this is going to be the guys that kind of are the core for the Pirates. They just haven't really produced. Henry Davis has not been playing well. Like, we'll see what happens with them, but that's
Man,
kind of been a rough year for them.
defense ratings do not like Henry Davis.
No, I mean
I thought he was doing
shouldn't
a little better.
shouldn't be playing outfield. Like
He's
he's
a catcher playing
he's
outfield.
a catcher playing outfield.
No, yeah, that'll do it.
I don't know why they could
Yeah.
have a nasty catching duo if they just went with Henry
I think,
Davis and Andy
yeah,
Rodriguez.
I think the problem is I
Yeah.
think Henry Davis turned out to not really be good at all at catching. So
Yeah, I think he's not a
so
good
it's
catcher
kind
either,
of
and
gonna
that's
end
not
up being
good.
like a DH type.
Maybe play him at
Andy
first and see what you got from
Yeah,
there.
that's true. They don't have
He hasn't been hitting though is the
Right.
problem. He's
Well,
got like
yeah.
a 87 WRC
Yeah.
plus. I mean,
He's young.
that's not good.
He's a rookie. You know,
Yeah,
it'll
he's got time. Definitely got
a lot
time.
of these
And the
Pirates
Pirates,
guys do have time.
we talked early in the season about maybe, are the Pirates, is this their, start of their breakout? Similar to the Reds, similar to the Orioles last year. It doesn't look like it. And, at least they did get Brian Reynolds signed to that extension. That's maybe the one thing the Pirates fans can take away from this season.
It's something. So let's go ahead and jump over to the NL West now, where last time we talked, the Diamondbacks were leading this division 2.5 games over the Giants, 3 games over the Dodgers, 10.5 games over the Padres, and 17.5 over the Rockies. Fast forward to today, the Dodgers lead this division by 9 games over the Giants, 13 games over the Diamondbacks, 16 games over the Padres, and 26 games over the Rockies. This was fueled by a 22-8 stretch from the Dodgers, followed by or with a 8-22 stretch for the Diamondbacks, which is tied for the worst in baseball with the Oakland A's, which, as we were just talking about, the Oakland A's are not good. So, they're San Francisco. They've been playing 500 ball over the last 30 days, but the Dodgers have really found their groove. The trade deadline additions they've made have all basically turned out to be, good. They've put them in their situations to do it, and just seems like typical Dodger baseball again. Their pitching's been really well. The hitting, they are going back to the platoon style where Kike Hernandez and Ahmed Rosario are able to crush the lefties, and then you get David Peralta and Jason Hayward and them to play against the righties. And but really, it's like this fall off from the Diamondbacks. I think we all knew there was going to be a little bit of regression there. I don't know if we thought there was this much regression there, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to predict a team that's in first place to go 8-22 in their next 30 games, but at the same time, I mean, the Diamondbacks seemed a little bit like fool's gold for a while because the pitching depth's just not there. The bullpen's not great. The rotation has the top end and Gallen, but then after him, it's like Merrill Kelly's fine as like a number 3 type starter, but you really don't have many big league arms there behind those two guys. And then you're relying on rookies who Brandon Pfaadt might have the most hittable fastball I've ever seen even though he throws it pretty hard. They just they're relying on those types of guys. And then I mean they're just not their offense is still good. I mean Corbin Carroll wasn't going to have a 150 something WRC plus all year, and I think Lourdes Gurriel came back to earth, and they've just had some bad vibes too. Like they've lost a lot of close games, and it's just been kind of one of those months that they've just kind of fallen apart. But you look at the rest of the division. I mean, the Dodgers are playing really well. It'll be interesting to see what they end up piecing together for their postseason rotation. But the pieces they picked up at the deadline have been really good. I mean, the offense is great for them, especially with the top end, the top 3 or 4 in the line in the lineup with Freeman and Betts and Smith, and I mean those guys are all playing extremely well. The Padres are still just doing what they've done all year. They're stuck in the mud. They seem to not be able to get out of their own way. There's just seems like there's been something off with that team all year, and I mean it just continues. Like they cannot win close games to save their lives. I mean they're like historically bad in like 1-run games and in extra inning games, which is, I mean, that's really
They haven't won an extra innings game.
Yeah.
They're still winless in extra innings
and
games.
they
They're 0
played,
and 10.
and they played a lot of them. Like they played like
They're
10,
0
yeah,
and 10.
Yeah, I was gonna say they played like 10 or
That's
12.
crazy.
Like they played so many of them. I mean, if you go 5-5 in those, you're looking at what 61 and 57. And then,
They're over 500. Yep.
Yeah, I mean it's like because you would expect to go about 500 in extra inning games, but just for whatever reason, the Padres have just been in meltdown mode late in games and in close games. And then, And the Giants are interesting. Their offense is so bad right now, but man, they just continue to somehow piece it together and stay afloat. I mean, this team looks to me like they're probably going to end up being in the playoffs, and I don't know how with the names on that roster and the way that they've hit the ball. I mean, it's kind of remarkable that they're still 63 and 56 in a division that has turned out to not really be as tough. I mean, the Dodgers obviously are extremely tough, but like, the Diamondbacks aren't what we thought they were. The Padres aren't what we thought they were. The Rockies are what we thought they were, which means it's not tough. Um, but yeah, they've been good. And then the Rockies to me are just, I don't. I mean, they're one of those teams. It's kind of like the A's and the Pirates. Like, they have not had anything go right with players coming up, new players, like guys who can be there for the future. They just had nothing's gone right for those guys, and not that there were that many to start with for the Rockies, because their front office, ownership, whatever, is just terrible at this. But I mean, like, nobody, Chris Bryant can't stay healthy, and the whole team's just that team's a train wreck. But I mean, the Dodgers easily, I think, right now are gonna win the division. I mean, they got a 9-game lead with a month and a half to play, and none of these teams behind them look to be even, other than the Giants have a pulse, and the Giants don't have a lot of upside. So I mean, this division's a wrap, and the Giants should be the team to watch here, whether they can make the playoffs or not.
I want to highlight two performances on the hitting side in this division. I want to highlight Ha-Seong Kim
Yeah, he's
for the
good.
Padres, who has a 130 WRC plus, and he has some of the best defense at second base in the majors right now. He's currently sitting at 4.4 Fangraphs wins above replacement, 15 homers, 27 steals. He's been a 5-tool guy. He's been really, really strong this season. It is not translating into wins for the Padres at all, but he has been really, really strong. The other guy I want to highlight quick is Wilmer Flores for the Giants, who has a 140 WRC plus and 15 home runs. He formerly of New York Mets and crying when he got traded on the field fame, is kind of settled into this role as kind of a DH first base masher for the Giants. And he doesn't always play every game, but he has really been able to kind of carve out a career in San Francisco as being a really, really reliable hitter of over league average every single season. He's really good, and it's translating well into at least some of the Giants' success on offense.
Yeah, and you mentioned that Ha-Seong Kim is tied for second in reference WAR in the NL too.
Yeah.
Tied with Mookie Betts.
So it's funny because it just isn't translating. It isn't translating to the Padres are a better team because they've got Juan Soto, Ha-Seong Kim entering the conversation as a star player, and Fernando Tatis, who's been himself since he got back. It just isn't mattering. So,
and not to confuse Wilmer Flores with his brother Wilmer Flores, by the way.
Yeah,
which I think
he's the prospect in the Tigers. The Tigers are an organization, I believe.
I think they even have a third brother also named Wilmer Flores. They all have different middle names, but
who's the other player? There's somebody else who has that too. The brother's the same name as I can't remember who it is.
I don't know that. I know the old story of Madison Bumgarner dating a girl named Madison Bumgarner, though. I thought that was pretty funny too.
Yeah, that's a good one.
By the way, y'all mentioned Fernando Tatis Jr. He's only got a 115 WRC plus now in the season.
He's really struggled of late. Really struggled. But one thing you mentioned what their playoff rotation would look like for the Dodgers. They did get Kershaw back this week. Julio Urias is starting to find it. Since June 25th, he has a 2.25 ERA and a 2.85 FIP. And then what happened this last week when they were in Arizona, Walker Buehler threw a live batting practice session. And there is some stuff that he wants to come back late in the season as a starter. So
that'd be huge.
That would be huge. And also Blake Trinan did as well. So that would be another addition to that bullpen, which we know how nasty Blake Trinan is. Yeah. So could potentially have Walker Buehler back along with Kershaw, Urias, and Lance Lynn has been pretty good since he's come over as well. But anyways, so that's going to wrap it up for the division breakdown portion here. Anything of a kind of an overview that either of you guys want to talk about. Just, it was a little bit. Now we're here almost 2 months later, but kind of an overview of the division breakdowns in general.
Yeah, I mean, just we're getting down to the closing stretch of the season. You definitely have the playoff races taking shape. I mean, you can eliminate a bunch of teams from contention right now, and even teams that were buyers at the deadline and stuff. And it's gonna be an interesting rest of the season. I know that with the way that the schedule is changed this year, you're going to have a lot of scoreboard watching where you're probably not going to have as many teams in these division races like the central divisions and the you know like in the AL East. Like they're not going to be facing off against each other quite as much as maybe in the past, which kind of sucks in a way. But you're going to be seeing a lot of uh, watching the scoreboards, and it's going to be an interesting close to the season. The wild card races are both going to be really crazy. It'll come down to the last day again, I'm sure, for one of them. And yeah, we'll see what happens. I mean, we've just got 6 weeks left, so a month and a half, and it's getting close.
Yeah, I think the divisions you can kind of call are the NL East and the NL West. Other than that, I think everything's still pretty much up for grabs. So that's nice. We got four divisions in baseball to be watching out for this playoff race season. So always good to have some competitiveness here coming down the home stretch.
Well, and then tight wild card battles as well.
Yes,
which is good to hear. But so let's go ahead and jump over to players of the week and wrap the show up real quick. So David, who do you got for your player this week?
I am going to take George Kirby. I'm going to cheat just a tiny bit and take his last 2 starts. Last start he threw a complete game 3-hitter against the division-leading Baltimore Orioles. 7 strikeouts, 0 walks. The game before that, George Kirby put together 7 innings against the Angels with 3 hits, 1 earned run, and 5 strikeouts, and again, 0 walks. George Kirby is sitting on the season with a walks per 9 rate under 1. This guy doesn't walk anybody. We've talked about that at length. He also throws the fastball at like 97 miles an hour, but just these last 2 starts, 12 strikeouts, 16 innings pitched, 0 walks. Just don't see that in the modern game. A guy with this kind of nasty stuff, just filling the strike zone and preventing guys from hitting the ball hard. If there's a guy on the Mariners that I think I'm taking going forward as like a Cy Young contender type, it's George Kirby. He's another level, man. I think this guy's a superstar pitcher in the making.
So I've always been on the George Kirby train. We know that.
You have. You've been there from the beginning.
From the beginning. But what I will say, David, is that 9-inning game where he gave up 0 runs there, it was a scoreless game. The Mariners ended up losing in 10 to the Orioles.
Yikes.
That one.
Love that.
Kirby was pissed
Not
on
his
that.
fault.
Oh, yeah.
Not his fault.
He caught the pop-up in the 9th to get the last out. It was in Seattle to give them a chance, and he literally just like turned around, looked at everyone, just like threw the ball in disgust, and then just like told the dugout like, "Let's effing go!" Like, what are we doing here? So George Kirby's a legend. That I was watching a lot of that start because I have him on my fantasy team as well. So he was just absolutely disgusting. I was watching with a couple buddies who were like, they're like, George Kirby throws 99. And I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, he does.
He throws 99.
Yeah, he does.
He throws 99, and he has like a 20-to-1 walk to strikeout or strikeout to walk ratio or something stupid. So he's insane. But anyways, Matt, let's go over to you now. So who do you have for your player this week?
So my player of the week is gonna be Matt Olson, who
Shocking.
he has been on fire. Over the past week, he's hit .414 with a .575 on base and an .862 slugging. He's hit 4 home runs. He's been insane. I mean, on the season now, he's up to 43 homers, 107 RBIs, which is crazy. He recently went on a streak of like 12 straight games with an RBI, which is kind of hard to believe. And of course, with the RBI stat, like sometimes it can get kind of you throw it out a little bit because it depends on if guys are getting on base in front of you, which of course isn't a problem for Matt Olson. But hit behind Acuna, typically Albies and then Riley. But he's been, he's been spectacular. He's up to 5 WAR on the season, which is a career high, or it's about to be a career high. And honestly, if Acuna doesn't win MVP, I think the only reason that would be is because Matt Olson hit like 61 or 62 homers, and people are going to vote for the guy who hit 62 homers because that is kind of in the realm of possibility at this point. Like, he's on pace for 60 right now. So I don't know if he'll keep the pace up. I kind of doubt it. I mean, it's so hard to keep that pace up all year, but this guy's been absolutely insane for a long stretch, and this last week has been just a cherry on top of it. It's been fun to watch.
The problem for Matt Olson in terms of the 62 home runs is that 60 in the NL, that's been done, man. That's been done by like 4 guys. Or 3. I think it's 3 guys.
There will be people voting for it because of the non-steroid.
He's entering the conversation. I don't disagree with you, but I mean, it's been done. The whole point of the Judge thing last year was that no one had done it other than Roger Maris in the AL, and Judge getting there was a big deal because no one had gotten it in the AL. Even if Olson hits 65, he's still 3rd or I think 4th in the NL in terms of players who've quantified 60 homers in the NL. So it makes it tougher to make it a historical milestone. But I love the season Matt Olson's having, dude. He is definitely entering the MVP conversation. The problem is that he's not even the best first baseman right now because Freddie Freeman's just been so dang good. It's just that Matt Olson has more homers, more RBIs. He's been a more classical statistical player when it and Freddie Freeman is more of a strong analytical on base percentage, outs above average player. It's just, it's going to be preference at that point. And I think both of them have, a good teammate playing in the outfield with them, right? And Mookie Betts and Ronald Acuna, those guys all 4 of them are going to be drawing votes away from each other for this MVP race. It's going to be, it will be, I think, who gets the best milestone in terms of between Olson, Acuna, whether Freddie can get like a 430 on base percentage or something. Like, it'll have to be something significant, I think, to draw votes in that race. That may be the most important, or not important, but the most interesting award race going down to it, because there's a lot of guys who could win it.
If Acuna continues to play at the pace he's at, like, there's no way anybody passes him. But if he had a bad September or a bad month
or got
hurt,
he has missed time before.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I mean, like that being counted as a bad month, like him getting hurt or him, if something happens to Acuna that causes him not to play at the pace he's at, like, Olson would be in that conversation. And like I say, I mean, last year that AL record was a big deal, but at the same time, like, a lot of people thought that record was, such a big deal because it was the highest anybody had ever hit in the non-steroid era too.
Yeah.
So that's something. I mean, if you remember, Giancarlo Stanton hit 59 and won MVP. He probably wasn't the best analytical player, and I'm not saying that I would vote for Matt Olson. I'm just saying that if he got to 60 or 61 or 62, like, there would be a lot of people taking votes away. Yeah,
he would need to out homer Judge in my mind.
Yeah,
he would need to get 63, I think, and at least to have a conversation.
Yeah,
get to like one. If he could get to above Manny Ramirez's RBI total, that might be huge too. If he could get a couple of months of 25 RBIs here and get up to 150, 160, nobody's done that in a long time.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, well, you guys are debating who's going to finish second in the MVP to Freddie. Unreal.
Freddie's got a perfectly reasonable chance, man. I just think Freddie's getting. He just doesn't have those flashy numbers, and that's what's going to make it difficult for Freddie. Yeah. He's so consistent. He does it every day. He's 2 for 4 every day.
Yeah, I'll say the other thing too, like the biggest knock that people have on Acuna is the defense, and some metrics really like his defense, and some really don't like his defense. Like, he's got positive DRS. I mean, it's not like he's
fighting. He's fighting against first baseman. The defense, the fact that he can play outfield is already a bonus. Like, none of those guys can put together what Acuna's putting together in right field. As much as I love Freddie, and I think he could probably play third base.
Yeah, he played pretty good there
He
when he played for the
could.
Braves a few years
He
ago.
could. He could. It's
Who's
just
your player of the week, Damien?
yeah. We have a lot of time to debate that one later. But my player of the week that I went with this week is Bobby Witt. He this last week batted .423, .464, 731 slugging, 228 WRC plus, .6 WAR. Had the fastest inside the park home run that has ever been seen. I think it was 13.4 seconds is what it was for his inside the park homer, which is insane speed there. Bobby Witt was a guy that last year was probably the rookie of the year favorite. Most people thought really struggled. Only a 99 WRC plus, 2.3 WAR, was really bad defensively. And then you look this, he still had 20 homers, 30 steals. Well, this year in 120 less plate appearances, he already has more homers, more steals. He's batting .277, has a 116 WRC plus. His defenses went from a negative 4.2 defensive value to 13.6 defensive value this year. A 4.6 WAR. Like on the season, he's ninth in WAR on the season and it's not really even talked about because he plays on a really bad Royals team. So I really wanted to highlight what Bobby Witt has done this week and also his season. It's been really phenomenal there. The other guy that I kind of wanted to pick was just to give a shout out to is Trey Turner. Has been one of probably the worst shortstop signing so far this year.
Mm-hmm.
And since July 31st, he's batting .327, .373 on base, .545 slugging, and a 147 WRC plus. It seems like Trey Turner is starting to find the WBC Trey Turner and the Trey Turner that we've known for the history of his career. So I wanted to just mention him as well because he had a really great week. Was actually tied with Bobby Witt in WAR there, but Bobby Witt was the guy that I really wanted to highlight because his season has been insane, and I think the player that we thought he was going to be, and it's not really being mentioned because he plays on a really bad team in the Royals.
He's already at 20 homers, 30 steals. He did that last year, and I said that was pretty impressive, and he's already there, and we got a month and a half to go, so he could realistically get to 30, 40. Very impressive. So, he's playing elite defense at shortstop. That's fantastic. Worth noting that I had something on Trey Turner. Maybe not anymore. I think it's worth noting that Trey Turner's World Baseball Classic, I think that kind of, I don't want to say it tilted his expectations, but maybe it tilted his personal expectations. I don't think it's the World Baseball Classic something that tires you out or was something that you can point to as fatigue. But Trey Turner's been bad this season. Kyle Schwarber's been bad this season. Shohei Ohtani's experiencing fatigue at this point. Mike Trout's been hurt. Like a lot of those World Baseball Classic guys have experienced some issues.
The thing is, like, you talk about that, but I mean, I think that Trey Turner.
It's ultimately anecdotal.
I was gonna say Trey Turner's got a lot of. I think it's he's on a new contract with a new team and stuff. It's probably played into that a little bit. He's chasing a ton, probably trying to do too much. Like you look at Mike Trout, ham 8 bone. That's not a World Baseball Classic.
It's not controllable.
Yeah, I mean that's just kind of a freak injury type thing that can happen to anybody. I mean, Ohtani, you could maybe make an argument for, but I mean, I don't know. I mean, this was coming for Ohtani anyways. The fact that he has gone as long as he has without having something like this has been absolutely unbelievable. That he has gone like a good 3 years now without having any kind of like having to take a break because of fatigue or because of some little nagging thing. Like it's just insane that he's been this long without doing that. So I mean, it was going to happen at some point with him. It's part of his future is going to be having to take a couple starts off every now and then because you just cannot play every single day and pitch and stay fully healthy all year, every year for, it's just not going to happen. So, it's remarkable that he's done it, what he has. And I mean, he's still, even if he didn't pitch the rest of the year, he'd win MVP. So I'm not trying to diminish Shohei Ohtani, but like, it's just one of those things that you got to work with him and manage with him. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if the World Baseball Classic has too much to do with it. Edwin Diaz, though.
Well,
Yep.
Just a short little dinger to wrap up. Trey Turner talked about directly how he was pressing way too much, and trying to play not only to the big contract, but he also said to the Phillies fans' expectations. He said that he was just trying way too hard at it, and I think it was actually Bryce. He said Bryce like kind of sat him down and was like, "Look, dude, like I did the same thing, so I know what you're going through, but you just gotta like trust yourself." And it's one of the rare times Harold Reynolds actually did a good breakdown. I think it was Reynolds or DeRosa, one of them on MLB Network, about Trey Turner's stance and it was Mark DeRosa because they were talking about the World Baseball Classic video-wise. Trey Turner's went to a small step now in certain situations instead of his actual leg kick. I think it's in 2 strike counts, and it's unlocked his ability. Like he went from hitting like 190 in 2 strike counts, and he's hitting like 330 now or something in them since he made that change. So it's a change there, and something that Harper kind of sat Trey down and was like, "Hey, I know what you're going through. Just figure it out." So that might be what we're actually seeing him starting to find himself again. But anyways,
not enough guys are just putting the ball in play with 2 strikes.
Maybe Trey should hit Harper down and teach him how to hit a home run.
He's hit homers. He's started to hit
Bryce's problem is that he's got an elbow brace that he is not used to. He's just trying to do as much as he can.
Yeah,
and Bryce will be back. It's just tough for a hit spot for him. So
he will. So, anyways, I think that's going to wrap it up for episode 138 of the Bat Flip Podcast. So, thank you guys for tuning into this week's episode, and we'll catch you guys back next week.